So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. The topic for the day is associate performance evaluation. Uh, so, of course, if you've been with us for a while, you know that February is the month. We try to get everything knocked out, and we typically wait until February, and we formally do this once a year because we want to have all of the financial information in. We want to be able to provide you guys with a good, objective feedback. And oh, mercy, something's going on Facebook. All right, get rid of that. Uh, but we want to provide you guys objective feedback, and in case you didn't catch the subtle reference there, we do have to have the financial information to be able to put this performance evaluation together. And for that reason, we will be able to discuss with you guys fourth quarter financial information by next week. And so putting two and two together, that means that we'll be able to have fourth quarter bonuses for all managers into paychecks by next week. So that's super exciting. You can expect that in your paycheck next Friday. And we'll go over all of that financial information in great detail when we're doing all of the evaluations. So that's something to look forward to, a little positive for all of this evaluation stuff in the next week. As always, go ahead and throw stuff in the chat. I mean, if you can throw as much in there, I really like a two-way conversation. And if we can get the questions out of the way now before the end of the deal, I'll stay a little bit less long towards the end. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Once again, just let me know if you got any questions or thoughts. But otherwise, I'm going to move pretty quickly. All right, so performance evaluations. We do them every year. Why do we do it? The first thing I always want to make sure that everybody knows is that, performance evaluations have a very notorious tendency for being viewed as a very negative thing, something that's, where you're getting critiqued and you go out all huffy puffy at the end and a little irritated. So we're going to do the best we can to make it a really positive experience because, we really do. We think we've got the best of the best. And if we don't feel like we have the best person in the store, we typically go ahead and let that person go and find the right person. So we like to think that everyone who's working for us is a really good fit and a really good person. So no reason to not keep it positive. Everybody's got room for improvement. It will come up, but that's not to say that this can't be a totally positive experience. When we're doing these annual reviews, it gives us an opportunity to make sure at a minimum, we're having an open dialogue, at least once a year on the following topics of how an individual's performance is meeting expectations, what they're doing awesome, and where there might be a little bit of room for improvement. Because, we really should be having this discussion way more than once a year. But at the very least, let's make sure we have it at least, let's catch up at least once. And so every year before we do these performance evaluations, I want to just kind of go through and provide you guys with a little bit of tips and data on how to provide quality feedback. Because, it's not even what you're saying, but how you say what you're saying is so critical when providing feedback to somebody. And there's a guy by the name of Joe Garfinkel that I think has some really good points that are really simple to chew on, but are good to keep in mind going into providing feedback to your associates. And really just providing feedback in general in life. I think that these are some pretty good little nuggets. So we'll just hit the 10 really quick. And I mainly just wanted to have it in here so that you guys can come back and look at it because I'm not going to give it the time of day that it probably deserves, honestly. So go ahead and go through here as quickly as possible, or go through here if you can. The first is just to be positive. We've been saying that it doesn't have to be a negative thing. We're going to focus on what people are doing well about 80% of the time in this evaluation, and we're just going to slide in some areas of improvement because even myself, I know personally I have a lot of room for improvement, and I don't need someone to berate me with that information. It's a delicate balance of rewarding positive behavior and bringing up critiques. Two, this is if you don't catch anything else I'm talking about today, and you just want to walk away with one nugget, this is it right here. I'm so in agreement with this thought that, and I know it's one place where I probably have the most room for improvement too. It's focusing on the behavior, not the person. When we're talking about doing these performance evaluations, it's not about how we feel about the situation. So try to keep your emotions out of this performance evaluation. Just focus on the actions of that person, and not the actual person itself. It's we could sit here all day. If anybody has any questions about that, throw it in the chat right now, because there's a big difference between alleging something about the person and alleging something about what the person is doing. No, I don't think anyone here feels like they have perfect actions. But whenever you go to tell somebody that they're not a perfect person, that's not received nearly as well. So yeah, can we repeat that one a few more times? I mean, it's huge, and this topic really does resonate through one or two of the points that we're going to make later on. So it's your free nugget for the day. Be really specific. There's a big difference in providing feedback, based on how specific you are. Make sure that you're providing tangible examples of the questions and not really vague criticisms. My example here was, you've been arguing with customers a lot. That's very vague and ambiguous and not going to be received well by whoever you're talking to. I've been hearing complaints about your attitude. Once again, these vague, ambiguous. No one likes to be told that, or if somebody walked up to me and said, you're not very enjoyable to be around. I was like, well, that was kind of rude. But if they came to me and said, hey, that one time when you were, yelling at me or the customer, that wasn't a very enjoyable experience. If you could be a little bit more positive, then I could say, well, you might be right on that one point. Be timely. I put a big oops right in the middle of this because we're talking about a yearly evaluation. So we might have already missed the mark on this one, but to the best of your ability, don't wait until an annual performance appraisal to provide positive or negative feedback. This is going to feel like a big bereavement if the big negative point is that your opener's not cleaning, and this is the first time that they're hearing about the fact that you don't like that they're cleaning. It doesn't go over very well. But the closer feedback is tied to the behavior, the more powerful it's going to be. So make sure that we're providing that timely feedback extremely often, and just summarizing how we improved or need more improvement in those categories once a year during this annual performance evaluation. Make sure you're clear on why you're delivering the feedback. Once again, it's generally pretty straightforward. Don't use judgment as a means for the feedback. This one hits right to that number 2 point. So I want to spend a couple minutes clarifying on some of this. You shouldn't use feedback as a cover for you to share an actual judgment or be critical of another person. So it's really important to dive out the difference of judgment versus a feedback. A judgment is your opinion on a person's character and isn't very neutral. Feedback should be based on clear, defined, objective data, which is neutral. So your example of the day here is me providing feedback to you, maybe and say, you have a customer concern saying that you raised your voice to this particular customer. And having that conversation versus saying, you have a tendency to yell at our customers a lot. One's a judgment about the person. One is appropriate and healthy feedback. So providing feedback from a neutral place, it's just building on that last topic, which is that feedback is really a piece of information or observation that you're sharing. Once a person receives feedback from a neutral place, it's really on their decision. When you receive feedback from a neutral place, let's go back to the idea of your opener. You're providing the person to say, hey, on your opening checklist, I noticed that, you don't check this one box. Oh, sorry, Jay Anderson, not talking right now. Once a person, so, if they're not doing what, let's say it was vacuuming the store in the morning, and you provide the feedback to say, hey, I just want to let you know you're not doing this job. It's a clear expectation. You can see on this checklist that you haven't done it over the last 2 months, despite me asking. That's from there on, that person can decide if they want to start doing their job and vacuuming in the mornings or not. But when you provide it from a neutral place, you provided that person that opportunity. Whereas if you provide it from an objective place, like I don't think you vacuum enough, then as soon as anyone feels like they're being offended by it, the likelihood that you're going to get any kind of positive change from there is extremely unlikely. Let's see. Michael says, please make sure that you don't just grade your staff members and have a 3-minute conversation. Make sure you schedule time away from other staff members to discuss the review. Be specific about your reasoning or your specific scoring or review. Yeah, specificity. That's one of the top points. I completely agree. This is something that's worth taking a little bit of time separate to have a meaningful conversation. When you're doing evaluations, it really needs to be a two-way conversation. You want to have this person that you're talking with to have buy-in on what you're trying to provide them feedback on, both positive and where there's room for improvement. Like I said, this is time to engage the employees and check for understanding. Make sure that they understand really what you're asking, why they received the review, and how they can do better to get a 5-star review in any section. And we're focusing on partnership. We're all on the same page. We're not focusing on this is what you need to do to change, or this is why you're holding my store back. Good versus bad. I always like to provide a little clear example. A good way to approach that is, I really appreciate all the hard work you put in, and we're both on the same team. How do you feel you do in this category? Versus I don't think you clean the counter enough. How do you feel about that? In the first one, you're opening a dialogue about camaraderie, you're approaching it from a camaraderie base, and we're figuring out how we can make a good store great. In example number 2, you immediately put the person on the defensive when you led with an allegation. And as soon as somebody gets on an offensive, the last thing you want to do is ask that person how they feel about that, because you may not like the answer that they get. Typically not a positive response. And number 9, follow up. This goes back to that be timely. It's the back end of that, which is that once we've had this conversation, let's make sure that we're being intentional to not have for the next time that we talk about the conversation to be a year from now. If your feedback concerns a problem in an associate, look for an opportunity to catch them doing it right. And that's going to reinforce the positive behavior. I used this example like about a week ago, but whenever I was writing this stuff up, I was like, this is the prime example. When Emily walked into 4317 earlier in 2016, that store had the worst packing to shipping ratio of all the associates. I think that their packing to shipping ratio was somewhere to the tune of about 8%. Whereas our top store, 2470, was somewhere to the tune of about 17, 18%. I mean, it was, way less than half, almost a third of our top performing store. And, that was one thing that Emily had felt like she was pretty good at in the past. So she did have that conversation with everyone about making sure that they were bringing up packaging. And that conversation, if you've never had it before, it can be a really negative conversation, because you're basically just telling someone that they didn't do a very, very simple aspect of their job correctly. So there's a lot of opportunity to approach that and have somebody walking away feeling demoralized or hurt or offended about it. But instead, the conversation was had, and Emily set up an incentive for the people, and you can provide more or less detail, Emily, if you're listening in. But basically said, hey, if all of you guys do the packing right and you charge for what you're supposed to, and I catch you doing it 3 times in a row, for all of you guys, I'm going to personally out of my pocket buy lunch for all of you guys, because Emily was smart enough to know, one, that she was reinforcing positive behavior and getting this good opportunity to catch everybody doing it right. And number 2, Emily may have paid a little bit out of pocket, but her sales went up so much. I mean, she's gotten stretch bonus a lot over the last couple months. She may have even random audits, 3 times free lunch. This is one, helping Emily in the short term create a little extra money by hitting these sales targets and stretch targets. But 2, it's increasing the profitability of the store a ton, which as long as Emily sticks around, that's going to, the benefit of that lingers for pretty much the entire career in a store. So I think that's a really great example of, you can provide feedback that could be seen perceived as negative and turning it into a catch them doing something right. And I know Becca is an associate at 4317, and she didn't come home once saying, "Oh, I can't believe I got talked about with the packing." Instead, it was like this super exciting thing where she was amped whenever she did it right. And I know her packing sales went through the roof. And that's somebody who used to be a manager. And when she was managing, it was a top growth store. So everyone, I just think that's a really cool example of number 9. Number 10, make sure that you have these 3 qualities before delivering feedback. This is just something more to chew on over the next couple months. Feedback is received so much better whenever you've got the authority to be providing that feedback, the credibility to provide it, and the trust of the person that you're giving an eval to. This is probably the main crux of whether your feedback is received positively or negatively. So if you feel like you've got room to grow in any of these, it may be something to work on for yourself. I almost laugh whenever I look at having the authority to provide feedback, because I think back about an employee that we had a few years ago who loved to provide feedback to other people who did not have the authority to do so, and it was not received very well. So you guys all have the authority as managers to be having the conversation with associates, but make sure that we're focusing on that credibility and trust, and it'll help you, not only in the future as a manager, but also in life a little bit too. I think it's a good little nugget. So that's great. That's all of your ambiguity for this meeting. I know that everyone here is a big fan of getting into the details and how does that specifically apply to me. I know that I am a lot, so we're going to walk through that. Performance evals for associates. Timeliness. This is happening, and this is happening right now. We're going to go over it today. Go ahead and write it in for all of your associates. Fill out the forms and have it to me and your area mentor managers by end of day tomorrow. Do not have the sit down with your employees yet whenever you finish this packet. I want you guys to submit it. We're going to provide a little bit extra information for you, and then you're going to have those conversations next week. Associate evaluations are very similar to what we did last year, but changed slightly. So the big change this year is that last year we had the associate evaluation form. We received it back from you guys, and it was a function of the evaluation that was received by us, and a function of the profitability of the store to determine if that person, if we can afford to give that person a raise. We're changing that this year. One of my managers is on vacation. Mary, we'll talk about that later. Obviously, we'll push that one back a little bit for that store. We don't want, once again, going back to those 10 feedback points, feedback probably won't be received very well from, certainly not from me, maybe not even as much from you two. So we'll wait for Mary Ann to come back to give that info. But yeah, just talk to me a little bit about it afterwards. But I think that there was a little bit of a fallacy in only giving associate evaluations that the individual store could perform it, because maybe we do have a really great employee who has a ton of opportunity and good sales numbers, but they're being weighed down by another store. Yeah, we're getting there, Jody. So the evaluations are all going to be limited to how long a person's been working with us and in each position. Obviously, in your position, Jody, it wouldn't be appropriate to provide feedback to somebody that you haven't been working with for very long. We're going to circle back to it in a little bit, but basically, if you haven't been working if a person hasn't been working for us for longer than 3 months, they're not having this conversation at all. But we basically looked at what we were doing last year, and we decided that we were going to change a little bit. So this year, 50% of the total score for an associate is going to be the associate evaluation form. It's the exact same form you guys filled out last time, so it's going to look familiar. The other half of it is going to be basically based on associate ranking, based on what we consider to be the key metrics. And these metrics are not going to surprise anyone who's ever watched any of the presentations or had a conversation with me, because whenever I'm looking at you or a store or anyone, I'm looking at the exact same things every time, to the point that I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing it from me. But we're going to look at total sales. I want to know, is this person reading books all day, or is this person out there trying to make it happen and working the counter? I want to know what kind of dialogue they're having on print. How much print are they selling? Because that is the future of our franchise. Air to ground ratio. How much are we upselling on the counter, and are we using the quoting tool? I can tell you right now, if you didn't even have a conversation with a associate or with a customer, and you just use that quote tool, like we told you guys to start using back in July of last year, your air to ground ratio is going to be higher than 80% of everybody else. Back into shipping ratio, how much are we having that conversation and actually hitting the right SKUs? And ACT. All of these things as an individual associate should not have any correlation based on whether you're in a busy store or in a slow store. All of these are pretty objective pieces of data. So we're going to put all those together, compile a total ranking for you based on our entire organization and all of our associates. And that's going to be the other 50% of your score. There's going to be mild score adjustments. Not often, but we are going to be looking at all the customer concerns that came in about particular associates. We want to look at write-ups that are in your files in the store. And we want to be looking at employee kudos. So if you guys have wrote something up as a positive or gave some shout outs on Slack, any of that kind of stuff, it's all going to be considered when looking at these reviews. Okay, we got some questions coming in. Awesome. So how long would an associate need to be working to be eligible for a current evaluation and or raise? Evaluation, we're going to be looking at 3 months. As a general rule, if you're wanting to look for a raise, someone's going to need to have been employed by us for more than 6 months. But it's important, once you've been here for 3 months, we're going ahead and getting you on the evaluation train because I want to start providing. You're at the point where you can get some feedback at that point. So once again, summarizing: 3 months for evaluation, 6 months of employment for a raise. JP, is the weighted average based on the store or the associate? It's going to be entirely based on the associate. And I'm going to get into a little bit of information on how we're going to do that in just a minute. Once all the associates are ranked based on that total score they receive, they're going to receive a certain percentage raise based on the category that they fall into. So there can be 4 different categories. The top 20% of associates are going to receive a certain amount of raise. 20 to 50% are going to receive a slightly smaller raise. 50 to 80% are going to receive a slightly smaller raise. 80 to 100% are going to receive the lowest raise. And this is just a little bit more of an objective way to make sure that our top performing associates are, 1, being recognized, and 2, getting the getting the pay that they also deserve. So once we get this information from you guys by end of day tomorrow, we're going to provide you with some, we're going to get it back. We're going to review it on Monday. Next week, we're going to provide you with any details that you might need. So once again, you're going to be receiving some general ranking information on the associates, as well as the amount of the raise that they're going to be receiving. Okay, great. So now we're going to walk through the associate evaluations real quick, and I'll emphasize the real quick because we're running out of time. You guys, if you've been with us for a year, you've seen this. If you haven't, you're going to see it now. It's not anything novel or this is very corporate standard, tuned to the UPS store experience. Customer service orientation. This is the one that This is the one that we're perfecting this year. We're always working on perfecting. So let's make sure that we get a really honest, candid feedback answer on how well our associates are doing on this one. This is the 5-point bullet right here on the screen, but what this really applies to is that checklist that you guys should be doing each week with your associates. If you've been doing it every week with all of your associates, everybody should have it down perfectly, but I've been in stores and it ain't perfect. So make sure to give some candid feedback on this, walk through that checklist whenever you do provide that feedback, and show where there might be room for improvement on this piece, because this is just huge. That's the crux of it right there. Quantity and quality of work produced. I feel like all of these descriptions are pretty straightforward. course, if you have any questions, reach out to your area mentor manager. They've done this. All of our area mentor managers have done this at least once with this exact same form, so they should be able to provide you some feedback on here. Work interest. Are people like our associates acting generally excited or engaged in being there, or are they dragging along, waiting for the clock out time? Self-management. When you walk out of the store, what's going on. Is everybody reading books and checked out and checking their Facebook, or are we cleaning the store, working on next print jobs and trying to grow the store? Punctuality and attendance. This is I think almost everybody's gotten, with exceptions, a lot of stores have gotten the phone call from Cohen Will saying their store didn't open on time, or that so such and such called out and it's the morning and we need a closer now. Those aren't fun conversations. So if we're getting that kind of situation from somebody in any shape or form, let's go ahead and provide some candid feedback there. The associate's ability to be able to create a good judgment whenever the time comes that they have to make a judgment call in the store. Professional appearance. This is the uniform standard. You can grab this from the hub. If you don't have it, I can send it to you if you can't find it on the hub. But if your associates are not coming in wearing khaki or dress pants with a UPS branded shirt with a name badge stuck to their shirt every single day without exception, and I find out that there's a 5 on here, I might lose my mind. So everyone in our organization should have a really clear expectation of what this professional appearance needs to be and what our expectations are of what you're wearing to work every day. So let's make sure that we're getting that 110% right. Initiative and resourcefulness. Once again, just read the descriptions. Teamwork. Most of these are pretty straightforward. And communication. Notice under each and every single one of these, there's a place to provide comments. If it's anything other than just a really obvious or a clear 5, maybe even if it is a clear 5, it's not fun just feeling like somebody pulled a number out of a hat. But when you can provide some details or comments, or even just a little kudos saying, "Way to go, you do awesome in here," that goes a long way. So once you do all of that, you'll add it all up. You'll divide it by a 9. That's going to give you your average rating right here. And then there's going to be a little bit of additional feedback for you to provide in these sections right here. So just go ahead and either type or write these. I kind of prefer you guys write it in. It's got a personal touch to it whenever you guys write it. But I'll send it out as a Word document in case you want to do some typing in here too. But once you've gotten through filling all this information out, this is not for pre-evaluation where you guys send this to me, but whenever you're actually sitting down with that person, you're having that conversation, where we're doing good, what can we do better? Try to come up with some specific goals based on that conversation of what we can focus on, what we can look at as a goal. Maybe this person's not selling any print at all. Okay, well, your goal is to sell, $500 worth of print this month, $1,000 worth of print this month. And do that by 3 months, or maybe it's to make sure that we vacuum the carpets every single day for a month straight. Whatever that may be, come up with some objectives here. Post it up. Have an ACTU greater than $27, whatever it may be. And then once again, we just want to make sure we get a signature on here saying that we're all on the same page. This meeting happened. It happened on this day. Once again, here's going to be your associate's going to sign right here. Evaluators, which is going to be the manager, is going to be signing right here. This is just where, this is what I call, people have heard me refer to it a lot, the opportunity. Let's say you fundamentally don't agree with something that your manager said. That's okay. That's all right. You can let your associates know it's okay. This is their place to be able to, for the record, put a piece of opinion or thought right here on the form. And once again, that goes the same with the manager. They can feel free to, whatever their defensible item is, they can feel free to write it in right there. If 4 lines isn't enough for you to provide this extra feedback, put an extra page on there. Once you guys send it in, send in the signed form. Our HR, Scott, is going to be going through these things, just signing off, saying that we got everything squared away. In order to provide that evaluation of the metrics that we were talking about, we're going to need 2 additional items from you. one operator sales by profit center for each individual. I just want it to be printed out and attached to this form whenever you scan and send it in. And then two, the operator sales by profit center with the details on UPS shipping details. So I've got a little example that I had Emily send me earlier today. It was very nice. Let's go through here and all right. So this is the first one that I'm going to need from you guys, which is you go into operator sales by profit center and you print out this report that shows UPS total shipping transactions, and it has all the details on what fell into where. This is going to help us get our air to ground ratio. And then the second thing I'm going to need is for you to just go and get the most basic operator sales by profit center. Oh, sorry. So the only difference is this is going to be for 2016. So make sure that in this date range, we're going from 1/1/2016 to 12/31/2016. So we're going to run that date range, and then we're going to do the total amount of shipping in detail like this so that we can pull the air to ground ratio. And secondly, you're going to just come in and send me the general operator sales by profit center report. That way we can determine the total sales for an associate, the total print numbers, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll send out an example of a fully filled out form with these right reports later this afternoon if you don't have it. Or if you have any questions. So that's associate evaluation in a nutshell. If you got questions on that, go ahead and throw them in the chat box, or of course, as always, I'm going to stick around after the meeting's over and answer whatever questions you guys have. Moving along, manager reviews. These are going to be done by Wednesday of next week. We're going to get the associates out of the way first, and then we're going to move into these. These reviews are going to be almost entirely based on store data. If you've ever had a manager review with me or an area manager before, you'll know that these are not typically specific, judgmental. This is what I think of you. This is, once you've gotten to management, I think you're awesome. We wouldn't promote you to manager if we didn't think that you were awesome. And most of everyone who sat on the outside of manager looking in for a little while know that you typically linger there for a little while until everyone's just 110% sure this is hands down a great decision. So because you wouldn't be here if we didn't think you're awesome, I mean, you're not gonna get caught in a situation where you're caught off guard and you're hearing a lot of stuff from me about us not thinking that you're great. So we don't spend a lot of time on providing subjective feedback because, I and your area mentor manager aren't in the store every single day with you to provide that kind of feedback, but it's going to be more based on the store's performance and some hard numbers that are objective. So these reviews are going to be done for those that are formally in a manager position and have been in that manager position at your store for greater than 3 months. So once again, if you are kind of testing the water a little bit on running a store and if you don't have that formal manager name badge, or if you've recently started managing a store, so you've been doing it for less than 3 months, you will not be receiving this formal manager review where you'll be in line for a raise. We likely will still provide you some feedback so that you have it. But of course, if you've been at a store for less than 3 months, the expectation that we're going to judge you based on the last 12 months is crazy. We'll provide you the data. It's not going to be a view on you, what that data is. And once again, our focus here is just going to be on continuing to find opportunity for growth for you in your store and development for you as an individual and your store. That's all we're really focusing in on here. So how is this review going to be done? Manager review fundamentally changed from how we did last year. Last year was a conversation. This is very detailed, very numbers driven this year. So there's going to be essentially 4 functions of your manager review that we're going to be talking about. One is going to be the net profit of your store last year. We're actually going to provide you with not only the total profit and loss of your store for all of 2016, but also a ranking of how that profit number fell compared to all of our other locations. or hoping that this was really qualitative feedback. If you didn't know, not only, okay, my store made X amount, so I got X amount of money, but how does that compare to every other store in South Tampa logistics? So hopefully you know where you're doing great, where you could get improvement, and kind of know on a scale of 1 to 19 locations where you're falling. The next thing that we're going to be focusing on is same-store sales reports. This is not catching anyone by surprise. It's been around with us for the last year, because if you ever see me and we're talking numbers, I've got a same-store sales report in my hand. It's critical, and it's an awesome report with good information. So make sure you're checking this out and really digging into it every month. But the main thing that we're going to be, or the first thing that we're going to focus on, is the ranking of the STR increase. I'll give some specificity in case any subject to royalty increase. So we're going to be looking at the total sales minus things that are subtracted out for royalties. Yeah, you can find it right there, financialplanner.mb.com. Make sure you use Internet Explorer. Ranking of STR, we're going to look at it two different ways. Obviously, we're going to look at it on a total dollar increase, and we're going to look at it on a percentage increase, depending on which is more applicable for your store, and maybe even a combination of your both. Good example would be if we were reviewing based on a total dollar amount. 4255. If David and them and Victoria are in here, I mean, if I was comparing their total growth in 2016 based on a percentage, it might look like they didn't do a very good job as a store, because that store did $580,000 in revenue last year. So they might have a 3% increase versus a store that did $200,000 in revenue. They had a 10% increase. But, in my mind, who did a better job, a giant store that was able to create a respectable dollar increase, or a very, very, very small store that was able to get slightly larger increase? It's things to very well consider. Whereas, kind of looking at the opposite, let's say you were a high growth store. I mean, like our Gandy store that we just moved. We moved into a prime corner location. We're going to look at that one based on total percentage, not necessarily the total dollar growth. So it's always nice to see a store in the double-digit percentage growth, regardless of what the situation is. So we'll be considering both of those functions of STR increase. And secondly, we're going to be looking at the total ACT increase, which is, of course, you guys know, a function of a lot of different things that you may be doing in the store. Lastly, the final piece of the managerial review is customer concerns and praises. First off, these are going to be considered individually based on the merit and thought of what each of these customer concerns are about. We've all been in a situation where a total nutcase and crazy person came in with a customer concern that we had to deal with. But we are going to be considering the quantity of customer concerns and praises that we receive from the corporate office, and secondly, how much merit there may be to some of those, because sometimes in no situation is anyone doing anything crazy, bad, or wrong when these customer concerns come in. But I do think that it's telling of how well we're able to dissolve a difficult conversation on the store level. So if you're not getting those customer concerns, you're obviously doing a really good job of diffusing that situation and letting the customer know that our heart's in the right place and we're trying to help them. If we're getting a lot of these, then we very likely have room for improvement on dissolving that tension when the person comes in. And once again, just like the associates, once a person receives their total score, that's once again, there's a little bit more with this customer concern and praises section. There's some room to wiggle around in here. Everyone's gonna fall into a couple different categories, and they're going to receive a percentage raise based on which category that they fell into. A little different. In the past, we've always done dollar-based raises. This is going to be percentage-based raises based on the function of how much your total compensation package was worth last year, including bonuses and incentives and all that kind of stuff. That's it for regular managers. If you guys have any questions, once again, either let me know now or shortly after the meeting. But a little bit later, sometime next week, we're going to be sending out SurveyMonkey links to all of our managers, just to provide, in this instance, we are wanting to, from the manager, for the area manager level and above, we don't want anyone to feel like they're going to have the scorn of me or Michael or your area manager, whoever that may be, because you wanted to provide some feedback. I know for myself, I really want candid feedback on the perception of how I may be able to do my job better. I know that Michael would probably, despite his comments there, I know that Michael would always. We always appreciate feedback. We can't always be in 100 places at you know at 100 different times. But I wake up bright and early, ready to work, and I stop working late at night. I know Michael feels the same way. And, it's more of a focus on how we can, we're working every hour we can. It's more of a focus on how we can better provide you with the tools you need for success and how we might improve based on how we're doing. And we want you guys to be able to provide that information about me and Michael as the operations staff. We also want you guys to be able to provide that feedback about your area managers and our back office staff, which is Greta and Sky. But the last thing I want you guys to do is to think that there's going to be a scope on y'all's head based on what's said in those reviews, whether it be about your area manager, whether it be about Greta or Scott in the office, or me or Michael. So for that reason, we've kind of made the executive decision that we're going to send these out as SurveyMonkey links. That way we know that, because it's a SurveyMonkey link, it's going to be anonymous. We don't want to know. If you want to let us know who it is, you certainly can. If you don't, we're doing this in a format where you guys aren't specifying who's providing the feedback, so that because we really do, we don't want sugar cookie data. We want, the truth, or at the very least, your perspective of the truth, so that we can help make adjustments and provide the appropriate kudos and feedback to our area managers, office staff, and ourselves to be able to do the best job we possibly can for you guys. That's it. Those links will come out sometime next week. I'll make sure everybody's crystal clear on when they get it, when they need to feed it back to us. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. If you have any questions about this, once again, our area mentor managers are very familiar because it's the same associate evaluation form as last year. If you have any questions, just shoot them over to them. They'll compile them all together, and I'll have conversations with each of them over the next couple days. If you don't have an area manager at this point, meaning that you're one of the 3 new locations, just go ahead and coordinate directly with myself on these, and we'll make sure to get you taken care of. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, me and Mike will be on for like the next 10 minutes just to make sure that we answer whatever questions. If they're more personal-based questions, you can always feel free to call me. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day. Thanks for tuning in.